too fast to understand, others that they had never known horror could last so long. Then the waiting ended. Matt Cooper was dead, and there was a fire burning, and the grain silo upon which the announcers had been seated lay broken, with the fragments of Matt Cooper's airplane scattered around it like dropped leaves. Everything was panic. But for whatever reason that such things sometimes come to pass, fortune was kind. Debris from the plane washed over the crowd like sea foam. It left them bloodied and, in some cases, with broken bones, but death stayed its hand. As people took stock of one another, still trying to douse the fire, still sifting through the rubble of the grain silo, the only death anyone could count was that of Matt Cooper, who died instantly when his plane hit the silo. Even the announcers, perched atop it like a bird, had somehow come out alive. The more time that came and went, the more people waited for bodies to be found, for the number of the living in this world to be lessened. But it was a day of miracles. So it was with nervousness that the boy and girl were found buried in a pocket of concrete and steel beneath the grain silo. It was built with an infrastructure of steel piping that, when felled by the plane, created small pockets. Macon Campbell, the town sheriff, a dark-skinned, overworked man who had made it through the lion's share of his 30s with only a handful of things he wished he'd done differently, could just make out the pair of children held within the rubble. For a moment they were only shapes in dim lighting. Then he understood that one of them was his daughter, Ava, the other her best friend, a boy named Wash. The fear that came over him was like swallowed lightning.
"Ava,"
he called out.
"Ava! Wash! Can you hear me?"
His daughter responded by moving her hand. Her body was bent at an awkward angle, fetal, pulled in on itself like a ribbon, and she was half buried by debris. But she was alive.
"Thank God,"
Macon said.
"It's going to be okay. I'm going to get you out."
She looked up at him with fear and tears in her eyes. Her lip quivered, and she looked around, as if trying to understand how all of this had happened, as if the world had broken some promise she had always believed in. There was concrete and steel around her, sharp and waiting to come crashing down.
"Can you move?"
Macon asked. She answered by moving, first her hand, slowly, tentatively, then little by little the other parts of her body. There was concrete atop her legs, but after some maneuvering, she freed herself.
"Don't move too much,"
Macon said. He spoke through a small, narrow breach in the rubble. He could fit his arm and part of his shoulder through it, but that was all. It would take help and time to move the rubble and safely get to the children. He called to the crowd behind him for help.
"There are children here!"
he shouted. It was after she had gotten her legs free that Ava saw the boy, Wash. He was unconscious and buried up to his chest in rubble. "Wash," she said. He did not answer, and she could not tell if he was breathing. "Wash," she called again. His face was streaked with dust, and there was a small bruise on his brow. By nature, the boy was pale, something that Ava teased him about as often as she could manage, but just now there was something different in his pallor. He looked blanched, like a photograph left too long in the sun. It was then that she saw the steel rod jutting out of his side and the blood seeping from the wound. "Wash!" Ava yelled, and she started crawling toward him.
"Ava, don't move!"
Macon yelled. Again he tried to fit through the small gap in the rubble. Again only his arm and shoulder fit.
"Ava, be still," he said. "This thing isn't stable."
She did not stop. She only kept her eyes on Wash and continued crawling toward him. When she reached the boy, she whispered his name. When he did not reply, she put her hands on his face and hoped to feel something that might indicate that he was alive. Then she leaned close to his face, just above his open mouth, and tried to feel his breath. But it was difficult to tell what she was feeling. She was bruised and scratched from the fallen silo. She was frightened. Every nerve of her body seemed to be speaking to her at once. It drowned out any breathing she might have felt slide from